party on this bitch. We also got plenty of card space, so we're gonna probably take it up tonight. Goose Chasers, what is up? We are back on another Wednesday for another episode of Goose Chasing. We got a little special episode. Never really done this before. Just me, just your boy David on here, getting on here because I needed to speak some of my feelings, and I needed to just process and really talk about my latest goose chase with you all. And so that's why we're here. That's why you're here. And I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you showing up day in and day out, Wednesday after Wednesday. I'm not really sure what episode number this is going to be because I'm not really sure when we're going to launch it. So I don't know any of that good stuff, but what I do know is, as all of you know, normally Goose Chasing is brought to you by Tag and Brag and Tag and Brag Apparel. Join the Make Hunt Camps Great Again movement by heading over to our apparel page, tagandbrag.co, and get you some Make Hunt Camps Great Again apparel or some of our regular logoed apparel. We will have more. That is going to be one of my tasks as we move into this new year, is to make sure that our people are suited with the options for some fantastic Tag and Brag apparel and just some fun stuff as well. So we will get to that, but for now, we're just here, you and me, and I don't really know how to start this off. It's been a fantastic hunting season for us so far. If for those of you who have been following along for the long haul, you know that we started off just all guns blazing. The We Will Not Be Denied tour came out of the gate firing. I'm not going to lie. North Dakota opening day, Dino got it done on really our number one buck that we were targeting up there in North Dakota. Then 3 days later, I was able to get it done on really the number 2 buck. And those probably could have, flip-flopped a little bit. You could have argued one over the other. It was more of a personal preference for Dean and I. Either way, we kicked off the year strong, all right? That's what I'm trying to say. And October, pretty solid month. A lot of great encounters. Tennessee, great encounters. I think Uncle Jay, it was later in September that Uncle Jay missed his. Anyway, we don't have to walk through the whole season. We had a great November, fantastic November, our best November yet. And then December came along, and if you guys, once again, for those of you who have been following along, still tight-knit, and we appreciate that, you know that December was a little bit rough for us. My dad missed one in New York. Dino missed a couple in Kansas. Uncle Jay missed a couple in Tennessee. Jamie missed one in Tennessee. Very uncharacteristic of really everybody on the crew, honestly, with the weapon that they had in hand. And, going into this new year and kind of the end of the season, I was looking forward to dedicating it solely to Ohio. Ohio is the only state that we have open right now with tags in it. So unfortunately, Kansas was another wash this year. And what else? Tennessee was also a wash for Dino and I. We both had tags in Tennessee as well. But everywhere else, we're doing pretty good. North Dakota, New York, and now Ohio. And for me, it's been 11 years. This is the 11th season that it's been since I've tagged a buck in Ohio, and it's kind of a joke at this point. It's my home state, and it's what we do. And it's kind of weird. We don't necessarily have like the resources that we do here as we do in some of the other states that we hunt, which is kind of ironic, being that it is our home state. And I guess by resources, I mean, like our private pieces or even our permission pieces here are different. And even the good ones, or the more like the bigger chunks that we have here in Ohio are still, a couple hour drive for us to get to. But going into this late season, I was just looking forward to dedicating the time, solely to here. And we haven't had much going on up here in the northeast corner of Ohio where Dean and I are from, where we live. And that's uncharacteristic for this time of year. The deer numbers seem to be lower, whatever, one thing or another. I don't really know what the cause of it is per se, but nonetheless, the we will not be denied tour has to continue. And that's a lifestyle. That's a mentality, I feel like, more than just a nickname for the season for us. It truly is. It's like you have to have that mentality, that we will not be denied mentality. Otherwise, you can fall complacent in situations like this, and at the end of the season, you're left scratching your head like, why didn't I put forth a little bit more effort? Why was I denied? Why did I let myself be denied? So we started kind of stretching our personal contacts out and kind of going through like, okay, let's go through our resources, our friends, family, people that we know with land anywhere in Ohio at this point. It could be the bottom, very southern tip of Ohio. If it's got game on it at this point, I want to pursue it. I am ready to fill this Ohio tag. I'm ready to get the monkey off my back. I'm ready to move on with my life. Okay? So, found a couple spots. And we have an amazing group of people around us. Our tight-knit circle is phenomenal. And then, you start kind of branching out of that. And we're very lucky and blessed to be connected with a lot of amazing people out there. And they know what we love to do. And that kind of fuels them too. And yeah, it just, whether it's land, whether it's people that they know, with land, anyway, that, a good pal can help. They've seemed to always lend a helping hand. And so we're very blessed and fortunate for that. But anyway, got on a couple chunks of ground, found some deer, felt pretty good about it, and ended up going to put up a camera and really kind of hit the jackpot with this spot, that one of the spots that we found. The amount of deer, the amount of bucks, the bachelor groups, nothing like massive, like huge, like Ohio giant huge, but enough, solid bone there that I'm willing to go and at least have some fun, see some deer, and see what happens, and kind of roll the dice. And so I did that. I went early the one day, hung a stand. This is a couple hours from our house or from here, so I went and hung a stand, was planning on hunting it that night, did that, had an amazing hunt. I saw probably close to 40 deer, and I saw the buck that I went down, at least based on the trail cameras that I went down there to target, was the first buck that I saw. And he came in and he got to 35 yards. He never really gave me a good broadside shot opportunity. And I had so many other deer around me that it was kind of just it was a little bit of a difficult situation. It was also the first buck that I saw. It was early in the afternoon, so I kind of just let it ride, and I was trying to be patient, thinking that, I would get another crack at him, and ended up seeing another really nice 8-point that night. After watching the footage of him, was kind of like, damn, I probably should have tried a little bit harder to kill that deer, especially with this just drought that I have going on in Ohio. But nonetheless, it was an awesome hunt. I mean, picturesque bluebird day, blue skies, cold as shit, 15 degrees, I think, when I went in there. Got a slight southwesterly breeze, and it's hitting me right in the chops. And the fact that the sun was out and the warmth that you could feel in the frigid cold weather was amazing. And I think that's what had all these deer up on their feet, and especially up on their feet so early that night, is because there was just, it just felt good. Even though it was so cold, it just felt good with that sunlight. We have not seen the sunlight up here in weeks. Weeks. You know what that feels like? It doesn't feel good. So after that night, I'm like, man, I've got to get back down there. Like the next good wind, I've got to get back, and I left my stand up. I left everything, set up so that I could have a little bit less to do. And I ended up going back down the next day. The weather was a little bit warmer. It was going to be overcast. The pressure wasn't as high. Drury, the deer cast probably said, stay home and have a bowl of soup. But you know what, your boy, I mean, we will not be denied. We can't be denied if we're out there. So I made the trek, another couple hours drive for an afternoon hunt, got in early, had a couple difficulties in the stand, which you all can follow all of this on our YouTube channel. If you don't already, please subscribe to that, and we'd love for you to join in, like some of our videos, leave some comments, let us know what you think. But we've kind of got a never-ending story on there. We just document what we do, and our hunting lifestyle, our outdoor lifestyle, now our land management and just conservation lifestyle, and yeah, we would love to have you guys subscribe and follow along. But all of what I'm explaining, this whole goose chase is documented, and it's going to be a 3, maybe a 4-day series. That's why it's not out yet. We haven't even really put together the edits fully yet. I'm still working on that right now as I'm recording this, but I wanted to record this because it's fresh in my mind. My emotions are still there. And just kind of talk through it. And this is literally why we started this podcast. This is a goose chase. This is, you get to come with me in a more in-depth way of talking through this story, this memory, this experience that I've had in the woods. And it's my most recent experience. It's the one that is pulling at my heartstrings the most right now, in good, bad, and indifferent ways. And as we continue on, you'll understand why. But you can watch all of this unfold on our YouTube channel. And that's the cool part about what we do, is like, we don't hold any of this back. This is not a story. This is not a hunt or a series of hunts that I'm like, man, can't wait to put that out. Like, I'm likely going to get ruined for some of this. And for no other reason than there's just haters out there, and I'm willing to take that, because I think that some of y'all can learn from this hunt, from not only the good, the bad. Well, I guess there is some good in all of this, but to some of the parts that are hurting me the most, I feel like you guys can learn from, and that's why, I don't know, like, I feel like a lot of other hunting shows and other whatever hunting brands would probably just bury this one and never revisit it again. But ultimately, like, we're doing this so that it's not just for me. Like, if it was just for me, if it was just the highlight reel of me and my hunting career, like, who cares? Like, honestly, who cares? This hunt to me almost means more to me than some of the successful ones that I've had this year. And that's kind of weird to say, because I've killed a couple really nice bucks this year. I'm super proud and ecstatic of, like, the hard work that went in to both of them, the challenges that both of them kind of brought out in each situation. And I'm not taking anything away from that, but this hunt challenged me in completely different ways than either of those. Number one, I was kind of going at this alone. And that's all fine and good. I love that part of this hunt, of this story, and not leaving anybody out of it, because we had the whole gang of tag and brag, at least our tight-knit of tag and braggers, Dean, Uncle Jay, my dad, Cuzzy, everybody was kind of in on this one indirectly too, and helping me make decisions and helping me navigate it spiritually, emotionally, and all that good stuff. And so, but the act of it all was carried out by myself, all from like getting the feed down there, getting more feed down there, setting up this camera in a little bit of a different spot than we had it prior to this, setting the stand up, going down there and putting some hours in the tree and all that stuff. And then as we get into this, you'll like even the aftermath that we talk about so much. But this is like a true goose chase, and it's not like I didn't want it to be an actual goose chase, but ultimately it's the goose chase of life. And when you hit adversity, what are you going to do to respond to that? And when you're in adversity, how are you going to conduct yourself in that? And the Ohio State Buckeyes just won the national championship, OH. And I'm a huge Buckeyes fan. Dean and I both graduated from there, but that's not really the point. The point is that they battled adversity. They lost to the team up north and played probably their most uncharacteristic game of the entire season in the most important game of the season up until that point. And what they've shown me through their whole run throughout the college football playoff is, number one, their togetherness and their value of a higher power, of their spirituality and stuff was, I mean, it was intense, and it was incredible to see that at the forefront and then see the results that they ultimately got because of being led by the big man upstairs, by God. And they went through so much adversity, but that was the joining factor that brought them together and ultimately got them to where all of them wanted to be, especially the senior class. It was national championship, Obviously the team up north, that's a tough team. That's a tough one to beat. That's a rivalry week and probably the biggest rival in all of sports every single year. But ultimately, you want to be a champion. You want to be the champion of college football. And they did that through battling adversity, handling adversity, coming together within adversity. And I think that's a lesson that can kind of be learned in this hunt. So I go down there. That was a little ramble, but I go down there the next day and I sit and I've got 12 to 15 doe around me. They're kind of in all directions. Some of them know I'm there. Some of them are just trying to figure out why the other ones are aware that I'm there. And I didn't really see a ton of buck activity most of the night. And all of a sudden, right at dark, it just blew up. And literally within the blink of an eye, I am in the hot seat. I got the same shooter, the first buck that I saw the night before, come out, light. I probably had 15, 20 minutes of daylight left. But he comes to the tall tine. He's keeping everybody else off the pile. I got deer all around me. I'm waiting for my shot opportunity. At this point, my bow is in my hand. As all of this commotion is going on, I've got a doe coming literally right at me on the right side, and she just kind of appeared out of nowhere, and she gets to 5 yards, and I'm trying to maneuver the camera to keep it on the buck. I got my bow in my hand, and she sees me. So she's locked on me. Meanwhile, the buck and some of the other deer, they have no idea what's going on. Well, he finally bumps a couple doe off, and he's standing at like 32 yards broadside. I'm like, this is it. So I draw my bow back. The doe that had me pegged literally bolted. And that got his attention. So he's watching her bolt away. I come to full draw. He has no idea I'm there. I settle my pin. I let it go. And when I let it go, that arrow smacked him. I mean, I was calm, cool, collected in the moment. Settle my pin. You could see in the second angle. Settle on him behind the shoulder, release, like everything felt good. And that arrow tracked and it hit him. And when it hit him, I was like, oh. Because normally my arrow is zipping right through the animal. I shoot a REK HXP broadhead. It's a over 2.25 inch cutting diameter. But it doesn't matter. Like both deer that I shot this year, same distance of a shot, right through them, stuck in the ground, blood trail, just unbelievable. And that's why I'm shooting this equipment. Well, that arrow stuck and freaking whacked them, and there was a solid 12 to 14 inches of arrow that was still hanging out. And that kind of made my heart sink. He peeled off out of there, ran down into the bottom, and I saw a couple flashes of the lighted knock, and he was gone. And my initial reaction was that I hit him in the shoulder, and my initial reaction was not that good because of that. But then I started looking at the footage, and I'm like, wow, okay, so it looks like I got a little bit more penetration. And I'm watching the footage, send it to Dean. He's kind of saying the same thing. Uncle Jay, my dad, all of them are saying, you know, I got in there. Like when he's running away, there's 12 inches of arrow roughly sticking out of him. That means there's 20 plus. Well, no, I'm sorry, not 20 plus, but 15 plus inches in him. And when I got down and I just looked where I just went to the point of entry and I looked on the trail that he ran off on, within 10 yards, he's bleeding, and he's bleeding out the opposite side from the side that I hit him. So I'm like, okay, I got 2 holes. So I chilled. I went back to the truck, called the boys, had a little powwow. We were reviewing footage on the phone. Everybody was like, looks like it got in there. If it got in there, it had to have gotten lungs. The windpipe's up there. There's arteries up there, like, should be good. And there was a little bit of snow on the ground, so it was perfect. So by the time, from the time that I shot until the time that I went back in there to track, was a solid 45 minutes to an hour, realistically. After everything, got all my stuff out of the tree, went down and checked the initial spot, went back to the truck, had a couple phone conversations. It had to be close. It was at least an hour. So I started taking up the trail, and I mean, there's blood. Like it's like spurting on the top of the snow, like literally spurting. Like, and I'm seeing it mostly on the exit, like the exit hole side of the deer. And I go about 80 to 100 yards, and it's the same thing. I mean, it's an easy walking trail in the dark. Obviously, I got a solid light with me, but it's an easy walking trail in the dark. Well, then he had gone down into this bottom, and when I shot, all these deer scattered. There was deer everywhere. It was hard to figure out following him, following anything. And he must have just followed other deer, but he went back up and out of this bottom. And when he did that, I'm like, my heart kind of sank a little bit, because I'm like, man, the blood looks great. It does. It looks like I hit him in a lung or the lungs with how it's spurting, like squirting out the way that it was. It's not dripping. It's like it's spraying in the snow. But when he went up that hill, I'm like, damn, like he's got enough wits about him to do that. Like, that's kind of crazy. At first, I thought he was going to be doing me favors because it was going to be making my drag a whole lot easier. But then he went up for like another 30 yards, and then he crossed back down across the creek. And I get across the creek, and now it seems like he's almost like the track looks like he's kind of walking. But meanwhile, there's so many other deer track around. It's hard to keep track of what's his and what's something else's. The only reason I'm following any of this, once again, is because I got good blood. So I go another, I don't know, 40 or 50 yards, and up ahead of me, I hear one snort. At this point, I'm probably 200 to 250 yards into the track. And when I heard the snort, that really froze me. Because I'm like, was that him? All the while, there was so many other deer around. Like, that could have literally been any deer. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm tracking this deer in this direction. That's where I hear the snort. I don't have a deer yet. I'm already a little bit farther than I wished I would have been if it would have been a vital hit. So I carry on a little bit more, very slowly, but now, like I said, I'm getting like pools of blood on the either side of where where it looks like he's standing. And I get to the point where I'm about 300 yards into the track and I find a bed, and it's got a significant amount of blood in the bed. Once again, blood out both sides. And that's when my heart really sank, because I'm like, gosh damn it, like he laid down and then he got back up. Like, that's not good. He's not hit through both lungs. He's not hit in the heart. He's not hit in a vital that's going to kill him right now. So I kind of backed off the track a little bit. I gave Dean a call. We both agreed I need to back out. And it's hard to do because I'm hours away from home. So now what? You know, do you get a cheap hotel? Do you do whatever? So I go back to where I found his last bed. I take a couple more steps and I actually find another bed with significantly less blood in it, but still a pretty good amount of blood. Now I'm like, damn, like all these thoughts are going through my head. But then I sat and I thought about it for a second, and I'm like, well, maybe that was him that snorted. Maybe he laid down in this first spot and he didn't want to move from there, and I bumped him. And then maybe he tried to lay again, and it, like, first maybe he just saw my light coming through the woods, and then he tried to get up, and he had to lay down again so quickly. And then obviously I got close enough where he got up and he kept going. But either way, I'm like, he laid once. I'm trying to be optimistic here. You know, I'm trying to keep my head straight. You could easily freak out in this situation. That's not going to help anything or anyone. But you just got to keep your head straight and think, because I knew the deer, like, he was bleeding good. He had two solid holes in him, and that's a testament to the equipment that I'm using. Like, that's a testament to the broadhead that I have, the bow that I'm shooting, all that. But he still got up. He still laid down and got up twice. And so I backed out. It was an extremely long drive home. But I knew that at this point, it's now time to put a new set of skills to the test. And once again, through the Goose Chases in the past, and through a lot of experience of deer hit in different places throughout our young hunting life, like, I just have a lot of experience with this. I have a lot of knowledge that, like, maybe you can't necessarily read in a book, or you can't really get anywhere other than experiencing it. But I've been fortunate enough, fortunate but unfortunate enough to be in enough tough tracking situations, and I'm talking like years and years. When we first started, like we were shooting aluminum arrows and, no lighted nocks, mostly fixed broadheads because expandables were just starting to come onto the scene at that point. And so the equipment was a lot different. Like it's so different than it is now. So the chance of like a miss-hit deer, so to speak, were actually probably pretty good. The chances of missing or miss-hitting a deer were a hell of a lot better than smoking it and watching it go down in plain sight. That's for damn sure. So it was time, like now I had a long ride home. I had a sleepless night. I had a long ride back there the next day to just think about how I was going to attack this and how I was going to go about it. Do you get a dog? I'm just not a dog believer. And sorry to anybody that has a good tracking dog. I just have never had a good experience with it. I'll bet on myself like 10 times out of 10 before I'll bet on a dog. And especially because I had already tracked a little ways and I had already like laid my scent there. There's still going to be blood, whatever, but also, I don't know. At that point, like my optimism is leading me to believe that I'm going in to just find a dead deer, because I watched that shot over and over and over and over and over again throughout the night, and I've sent it to people that I'm closest to, and I got their feedback and analysis, and I don't think anybody was like, that was straight shoulder, he's going to be alive tomorrow. Like most people were like, that deer, if he's not dead already, like he's going to be, and you're going to find him tomorrow. I have snow to my advantage. I can track through that, blood or not, hopefully. And so that was the optimism that I was going in with. And I had to get permission on neighboring property. So I got that, and my permission was just to go and recover the deer. I didn't carry a weapon. That was kind of part of the deal. I at that point, I just wanted to go and see everything through. I needed to go see everything through. And so I got on his track. Man, I'm telling you, this deer carried it another 300 to 400 yards. Went through hardwoods, went over a pond, went through more hardwoods, went into some pines, went across some CRP, and finally I found another bed in some CRP. And once again, I found one bed, and then literally 10, 15 feet away, I found another bed. It was like he was trying to lay on one side and clot up the hole, and then he got up and he would try to do the same on the other. And once again, we're dealing with a mature animal here. He's not a giant deer by any means, but he's a mature animal. Big old gray face on him, and these deer have the will to live unlike anything that you could ever imagine. And so after that, it was really, really hard to figure out what direction this deer went. And I am trying to rule out all options. Like, okay, here's a track that looks like his, that's on a trail that has 10 other deer tracks on it. Let me take this 100 yards. And I would do that, and I wouldn't see anything, or I wouldn't see any more blood or any more sign that, told me that was him. Then I would come back to where he last bedded. Then I would see, then there was another trail, and I would take that to the edge of a hardwoods, or even into the hardwoods a little bit, another 100 yards, whatever. I wouldn't see what I needed to see. I'd come right back to that last bed, and I did that probably 6 different times just in those 2 beds that I found. And after all 6 trails that I went on, 100 yards this way, 150 yards this way, and back, I had nothing. I legitimately had nothing. I had nothing to go off of. I had no direction on this deer. I'm on property that I've never been on before. I'm looking on Onyx maps, and I really have no clue what to do or where to go or what are the deer's tendencies going to want to be. You know, what do they like on this property? Do they like the oak flats? Do they like the pines? Do they like, he obviously bedded in the CRP, so that kind of cued me into that. And there was a couple other CRP fields around. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to walk the edge of this CRP all the way to the corner of this field and the corner of this hardwoods. And I'm going to do like a little loop in the hardwoods and just come back and see what I see. Well, as I was doing that, I kicked up a boatload of deer, and that kind of taught me where they were just hanging out and laying down and stuff like that. So I banked that in my memory, and I'm like, if nothing else, I've got to go search over where those deer were, just to see if, maybe he was with them and he was out in front of them or something. I don't know. So I'm looping back around through this hardwoods, and I kind of get to the back corner, complete opposite corner of the CRP field, and I'm in between now like two CRP fields in a big strip of hardwoods, probably like 120 yards across. And I'm like, I'm just trying to get in his head and feel him out. I'm like, I feel like he's going to want to go to that other CRP. Like the hardwoods was all open. And unless he completely like doubled back in that CRP, I'm like, I feel like, if he walks through this hardwoods, that's kind of the next place that he's going to want to go. All the while, like in and around where his last two beds were, there was coyote tracks. So I'm like, man, I don't know if these coyotes got him up, in during the night, or they were sniffing on him because he was bleeding and he got freaked out. And this deer could be anywhere at this point. Nonetheless, I'm trying to go back to everything I've learned from my personal experience on tracks like this. And you always got to revert back to the last blood or the last sign that you have. And then you just kind of have to, like, if you've got nothing, you've kind of got to just sit there and take in the terrain around you. You've got to just look and observe and listen. And just like, you've got to, in those moments is when you've got to slow yourself down the most. It really is. Like, you've got to take your steps twice as slow as you think that you need to take your steps, because you have no destination at that point. So the important thing is that you don't step on something that might have been a sign and you can't see it now because you stepped on it. The important thing is literally seeing and observing everything in the close proximity to you that you can take in. And so I was kind of doing that at the back corner of this, CRP, and just my own intuition took me on this trail towards the CRP. And I get about 80 yards through the woods. I'm about 20 yards from the CRP, and I look down and I'm like, there's a freaking spot of blood right there. I'm like, holy shit. And then I look to my left and kind of like back parallel with the CRP field, there's another spot of blood on the log. So I start back trailing it. And lo and behold, that trail took me back like 40 yards and kind of banana curled, like within 100 yards of where I had last blood. And I could at least see where the last two beds were in the CRP. I'm like, this makes sense. He came out of the CRP, cut into this hardwoods, and now he's just kind of banana curling, and he's walking parallel with the wood line and with the other CRP field. So I go out into the other CRP, and in my first intuition was he had to have gone out into that other CRP. He had to want to get into that cover. And I get out there, and I'm looking at every track. Once again, I'm doing the same thing. I'm taking the wood line closest to where I last saw blood inside the woods, and I'm taking every trail outside of that wood line. I'm taking the trails up and down the wood line in the CRP. I'm out in the middle of the CRP just looking for blood on different fresh trails. I'm glassing it. I had my small drone in my bag, and I flew that all across, or like all around that CRP field, just to see if I could see him laying in there. All of this took about an hour and a half, and I had nothing. I was back to nothing. And so I sat at the edge of the CRP field and I just prayed for a second. I'm like, God, just help me find closure in this. At this point, I'm a solid 3+ hours into a track. I've spent a lot of time in the last 2 hours realistically with no blood or searching for some sort of direction. And I didn't have it in me at all anywhere to give up. Like what I had found up until that point, even though I hadn't found the deer, was not good enough for me to give up. All the while, I don't have the arrow still. So to my knowledge, the arrow is still in this deer. So I pack up all my stuff. I go back into the hardwoods where I last found the last spot of blood. And now I'm taking a trail through the hardwoods, and I get to a certain point and it splits. And when it splits, I mean just the fresh track that looked like they could have been his split off into two different directions. So I was examining by where the last blood was, literally what the track, mind you, he's walking on a trail that are covered in other track. I'm just trying to pick out like the freshest stuff possible and see exactly what it looks like, what the little dew prints look like in the snow, what his track looks like in the snow, how deep it goes, the snow that's on top of it. Like, I'm over analyzing the crap out of this, but it got me at least confidence to what I thought was a direction on this deer. And lo and behold, I go another 50 yards and I find a little speck of blood. And I'm in the middle of the hardwoods and I'm on this trail. And now he's walking out through the middle of this hardwoods, and he's really not going towards any thicket. So I take the right trail where they split, and I take this trail and I walk another 150 yards to the edge of an open field. This field's probably another 120 yards wide. And there's like a literal beat down deer trail that I'm on going through this field to the other side to another what looked like from afar, at least a fairly open hardwoods. I take that trail all the way over, no blood. I get into that hardwoods and I'm like sitting there and I'm like, I just don't know like why he would come over here. You know, I don't think that, I didn't see any sign. The track looked similar, but I didn't see any sign on that trail that would tell me that he walked across that field and got into that other hardwood. So I go all the way back, a couple 100 yards all the way back, and I get to where the trail split again. And I take the left side of the trail this time. And I'm walking through the open hardwoods, and I get about 40 to 50 yards down this trail, and holy shit, there's another spot of blood. I'm like, this is insane. Like, I keep just ruling out by process of elimination. And granted, it's a lot easier to do right like in this moment that I'm in because of the snow that we have. But that's an advantage that you got to take advantage of in that moment. Like, that's a huge advantage for you. And it was working for me. And I was kept getting on this deer. I would lose track probably 3 or 4 different times. And not be able to find it for a while, like time-wise, a while. And then hundreds of yards later, I would pick up another trail again of him, and it kept me on him. Well, I take the left trail, and this is another beat-down trail, but the crazy part was that thing banana curled, and it met the other trail that I was originally on at that field line. And then that was why there was a really beat down trail straight across this field into the other hardwoods. And because of that defined trail across that field, I'm like, he's got to be over. Like, he had to have went over there. So I pull up my Onyx maps and I'm like kind of looking and I'm like, okay, he's kind of curling back towards, like a little bit back towards where, I had originally hit him. I'm like, if nothing else, I'm going to go check this hardwoods. And if I don't find anything, then my plan was to go back to that CRP and walk all the way around the edge of the CRP looking in the hardwoods on either side of it. And then I was going to curl back to, at that point, if I didn't find anything, I was going to have to exhaust other options. But I go down into this hardwoods and it was insane. I walk in there and it's a massive oak flat. And these deer have this place looking like turkey scratch all over this woods, still digging for acorns. And there are beds everywhere. And there's some fallen tops creating structure and stuff like that, but there are beds everywhere. I kicked up a couple deer to my left. I'm just kind of taking it all in. I'm trying to listen. I'm trying to see. I'm trying to look up ahead of me. I'm trying to spot deer before they spot me if there's anything in here. And then I got, I took my time with that, and then I got back on a trail that, once again, the track just looked like his track. And all the while, I'm taking in this woods and where would I go if I was him and what would I want to do, and just once again, my natural intuition took me on this trail, and I start cruising down this trail. I say cruising, I'm going real slow. And I mean, I'm at the point now where I'm like, I'm going to be just combing the woods and I'm going to be just looking for a deer at this point. And I'm going to have to do that until I basically can just walk my way out and back to my truck. Well, I go another 100 yards or so and I stop. I'm taking it all in again, and I literally just look down, and right by my right foot, there's like a spurt, like it almost looks like somebody took a paintbrush and just flicked it at the ground, of blood, right in the snow, right there again. And I'm like, I almost horrified myself at that point, because this time I was so far from the last spot of blood that it didn't even really make sense to be where I was at. But once again, I was just trying to like get in tune with this deer and use my own intuition to get in his head and what would he do. And it led me right there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. And then all of a sudden, like it was like every 10 feet, another quarter-sized little of blood here, another one. And now I'm on a walking trail. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Now I'm on a walking trail, and I'm like, I can't believe that I'm back on this deer. Like, now I'm legit tracking this deer again. And I take this probably 80 to 100 yards to another bed. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Less blood in it, still out both sides. This one looks like it was from the night before or maybe earlier in the morning. I mean, at this point, it's got to be 2:30 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And like I said, this oak flat is littered with sign. There are track going left, right, and sideways in every different direction. It is so hard to figure out what's his and what's not. But when he beds down, you can kind of tell where he gets up and starts walking again, and at least get a small direction on him. So that was helping me, along with a little bit of blood. And about 20 yards further, I find another bed, and he's kind of like he's putting himself right up against these blowdowns where he's got something at his back. He feels safe. He feels comfortable. But it kind of seemed like at this point he was just walking around, milling around, and almost feeding. Go a little bit further, fresh track to one more bed, and this bed had extremely, extremely fresh track in it. All the while, to revert and back up a little bit, right as I found that first little paintbrush spot of blood, before I found the beds, I ran into a group of deer up ahead of me. And it was a group of about 9 or 10 deer. Some of them knew I was there. The one doe literally walked back to me to 30 yards to investigate, and like 7 other deer followed her. He was not with them, at least to my knowledge at the time. But when I found that last bed, I'm like, man, I'm right on his heels with how fresh like literally it looked like it looked like his prints were in the dirt like moments before I got there. And then the tracks, there was a couple different really fresh tracks coming out of it that I followed a little bit further. But when I found that last bed, I'm like, man, he's alive right now. Like, this deer is still alive right now. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't fathom it. But I also got to the point where I'm like, this is, at least for today, like, this is the closure that I just prayed for. You know, this is the not just hours before that. Like, this is the closure that I sought after. And I don't know, it was a weird feeling. Like, in one breath, like, I was bummed. I was bummed because I knew what was going on. I'm like, this deer is still, he's not fatally hit, not right. Like, he might die eventually, but he's not going to right now. And that's gut wrenching for me as a hunter. Like, that is gut wrenching. It's gut wrenching. Like, I want a quick and merciful kill on any of these animals. Like, to think that I altered a life, and to that degree, it's gut wrenching for me. It's the absolute worst part of the hunting experience. It makes you want to crawl in a hole and just be alone. It's a horrible feeling. Like, it really is. It's a horrible, horrible feeling. But then another part of me was so proud of getting to that point with the after-shot tracking skill set, like getting to that point after the shot, and especially the next day. It was very humbling for me. Like, it made me proud of my roots. It made me proud of, of my dad and Uncle Jay and the guys that brought me and Dean up into this, because when we drew blood, and ever since I was little, I can remember this. Like, when we drew blood, it then turned into an all-out relentless effort to figure out an answer. Whether you found the deer or you knew that deer was going to be all right or was going to live. It was one or two things. And we always, 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 for the deer's sake, exhausted one of those two options. It was always, and that was ingrained in our head since we were little. So for me to be on this mission by myself and to get to that point, like, I was proud of that. There's no way, there's no way that a majority of hunters out there even care enough. And I'm not trying to, I hate saying it like this, and this part of the conversation is weird to me, but it's also real. Like, I'm not trying to brag about myself or boast myself or anything. Like, I'm proud of the fact that I got to that point, that I got to the point where I'm like, based on this sign, based on what I've seen, based on what I've observed, this whole 6 hours of tracking this deer and literally losing him multiple different times, only to pick him up hundreds of yards later, just because I was able to get in his head. And then to get to this point, to know that at least right now, like, this deer is still alive. I was proud of that. And then just having to leave that scenario, like, I was proud of that day. I was proud of that hunt. I was proud of it all, outside of wishing that I could have the shot back and put my pin a couple inches to the left. You know, it's crazy. It's a game of inches. I mean, that arrow is literally 2 inches to the left, and that deer doesn't have lungs anymore, and he probably falls within sight or not far out of it. You know, I mean, really, inches in any direction have a drastically different outcome of that hunt. And it's so hard for me to sit here, and even in the moment, like, I'm not mad about or I'm not frustrated or anything about what happened in the moment, because in the moment I felt like I did everything right, and it wasn't good enough. It wasn't lethal enough. It wasn't merciful enough. And that's what eats me alive the most. Well, I shouldn't say that. Personally, you know, you want that shot back. You with as much as I practice and the time that I put into my equipment, once again, I'm not mad about the shot that I took. I'm not mad about how I released the arrow. It was all good to me. It was all good to me. But it's a game of inches. But man, I'd be lying to you guys if I told you that this one has shaken me to my core. I'm about a week removed from the hunt, and I could tell you, in the days after, I was telling Dean, like, I'm done for the season. Like, and that wasn't me being ignorant, or just, like, I just felt like, why do I deserve another opportunity? Like, I've got an arrow and a deer right now. I've drawn blood. In all reality, like, that deer's likely going to die. I mean, who knows? You got to bet on the deer a lot. They're strong and willful animals that have an unbelievable will to live. They do. You know, there's a lot of me in this scenario, in this occasion, that, like, questions how did that deer live up until that point? How did he make it with that shot, with the arrow still in him, with 2 holes in him? How? I don't know. There's so many thoughts that run through my head. You know, do we just bury this footage and nobody ever sees it? But that goes against kind of our core values and what we're all about. This is part of it. Like, this is the unfortunate and shitty part of it, because I can tell you guys that I don't feel good even right now. Like, I don't feel good about this entire scenario, about the outcome. Like, honestly, the outcome, and really the outcome for the deer more than anything. Like, it's really the outcome for the deer, and obviously I would want different outcome personally as well, but out of respect for the animal, it's the thing that kind of hurts me the most. but it's hard for me to accept. It really is as a bow hunter. It's hard for me to accept that arrow didn't kill that deer. It's hard for me to accept the circumstances, I guess, and the situation right now. It's hard for me to accept getting back into a tree, even though I know that we're not ones to give up. We're not ones to just throw in the towel when something bad happens or when you face adversity. So I know that's not how I'm going to finish my season, but man, this sport, and I don't even like calling this hunting a sport anymore. Hunting is its own thing, and when life is involved, and especially one that you alter or you take, it's really not. That goes beyond sport anymore. So hunting is so unforgiving sometimes, and it's the hunting. You have your ultimate highs and your ultimate lows, and I'd be lying to you guys if I said I wasn't at an ultimate low right now at this point, and I'd be lying if I wasn't scratching my head going like, what is happening? Like, why did that happen? Why is all of these kind of misses and mishaps happened during the late season for us? Yeah, it just makes you question it. Like, why? Yeah, why? Why does that have to happen like that? Why does something that you pray for and that you want and that you visualize and you dream about, why is that the outcome? Why? We've done this for, so many years now, and now we've made a career out of it, and we've had Tag and Brag going for the last 10 years, and we've been actually doing this full time really for the last like 5 years. And it feels like when you're put in a scenario now, when you're in my shoes with how much you dedicate to this and the fact that it's your livelihood, it kind of feels like when you're put in a scenario where you have an opportunity, it just should go good all the time. Like, that's just how it should happen. But that's why hunting is so humbling and why it's so unforgiving, because it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how much, experience. Well, it matters a little bit how much experience you have. But on any given day, this can happen to any given bow hunter, and it does, and it will, and if it hasn't yet, then we always say, like, you haven't been doing it enough. You don't have the experience just yet, because it will. And if nothing else, like, I just hope, an episode like this where we can talk through some of like our woes, and even you can go onto our YouTube channel and watch this stuff, like, it can minimize that to happen for other people and other hunters, because this feeling sucks. Like, it sucks. It's a part of it. It's a part of bow hunting, but it sucks. And yeah, I've been letting myself feel the suck, because I do think that is important as well. Yeah, I think it's important. I think you've got to feel the suck, because you've got to pick out in that scenario what you can control that didn't go your way, that won't allow that to happen again. And I've done that, in my shooting, and it, like, I'm so concentrated when I'm shooting my bow, and I'm so like this time of year especially, I don't shoot as many reps, but that means that each one of those reps has to have even more of like attention to detail and like, a good release and good form and all that stuff. because you're shooting a little bit less. And I feel like I've even dialed that in even like more since then, because I've been, shooting my bow a lot more, because I don't understand, why that game of inches just kind of went not so much in my favor, at least in this scenario. But yeah, it's so hard, it's so hard, and it's hard to put this stuff out there, because in the hunting world, and especially in the hunting TV world, it feels like everything that you see on TV, it's all a success story. It's all a successful hunt. It's all it's all the hoorah, it's the happy ending. It's, whatever, the light at the end of the tunnel. Every episode ends with this is a grip and grin, and this is how the hunt happens. But unfortunately, it's not always how it happens, and that's why we want to bring this reality to you guys. As hard as it is for us to stomach sometimes, and as hard as it is for us to look at some of the comments and the judgment and stuff, we've got to put that to the side and know that the real people that follow us, and the ones that know us, know the type of people that we are, the hard workers that we are, the character that we have, and how we conduct ourselves, and respect the fact that we kind of open the doors to some of our vulnerability and all of our mishaps in this world, along with all of our successes, so that we can truly go on this journey together. Because I can promise you, when I do end up filling an Ohio tag, there's going to be a lot of you guys out there that watch and listen to this stuff all the time that are going to be enjoying it, just as much as me, with me, because we've been able to kind of go on this journey together. And you're going to be able to see my emotions and my feelings in this 3-part vlog series of this specific scenario in this hunt. And I'm going to go back down, and I'm going to hunt there again at some point this week. And I don't know, just take it in, pray a little bit, be there, feel the energy, feel, what's there and the animals that are there. I don't know if the deer's still alive, if a second opportunity would even come to fruition. And that's not something that I'm even hoping or wishing for necessarily, but I would like to know, I would like to see the deer again. I would like to see him again, dead or alive, I guess, and just know and have that kind of closure, or just understanding of what happened. But once again, there's a lot of thoughts that are still going through my head, and that I'm compartmentalizing with, that are tough to understand. And the activity, the tradition of hunting, is celebrated in most cases, but it's these moments that are so hard to handle. But ultimately, I think it's what keeps us coming back for more year in and year out. And I'm proud of the fact of how we've handled this season. The We Will Not Be Denied tour is not over yet. I'm proud of the fact of how we've handled our successes this season, and I'm proud of how we've handled the adversity this season. And I'm also proud that we are all still in this together, you guys all included, and we're not done yet. We're not giving up. We've got a couple weeks left, a little less than a couple weeks left, actually, and we're going to fight till the finish, because that's all we know how to do. And then as soon as this Ohio season ends, we turn the page and we start focusing and collaborating efforts on the next season. So maybe this episode comes out after the Ohio season's already done and we're already there, and that's all fine and good too. But regardless, we're going to fight till the finish, and we appreciate y'all hanging out with us and coming along this journey with us. That means the most to me, documenting all this stuff and allowing you all to come with us, and all of you that join in consistently means the most to me. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all for being along this journey. Once again, for this specific goose chase, go over to our YouTube channel and check out Ohio's latest episodes. It will be a 3-part series. You'll get the initial hunt, the hang and bang mission, you'll get the actual kill hunt, and then you'll get the after the kill hunt and adventure. And yeah, leave us a comment, please. Like, subscribe, let us know what you think. And thank you, as always, for coming along this journey with us. As much as I don't want to continue talking about this one or wanting to put this one into the limelight, I very much appreciate you guys following along. And I appreciate you watching. It means a lot to me. Worked very hard to document it all. And yeah, once again, as hard as it is to put myself out there like this, it's the only way I know how to do business, is being truthful and honest and taking you guys along the actual journey that happened the exact way that it happened with us. So without further ado, we will let you guys go. Thank you once again, and we will see you right back here next Wednesday on another episode, and hopefully a successful talk about of our most recent goose chase. So we love y'all. We appreciate y'all, and we'll see y'all right back here next Wednesday. Peace.